Hello, everybody. I have some really good news for Canadians, and I am sure that many of you who have been tuning in and following this closely are now fully aware that the Emergency Act in Canada has officially been revoked, at least for the meantime. There, I am sure, was a lot of pressure on Justin Trudeau and his Liberals, including within his own party, who basically called out that this act is completely unjust. And enough pressure, I guess, has been applied where so quickly Justin Trudeau has lifted this Emergency Act. I believe that it wasn't entirely in his power to keep it, and there has clearly been a lot of pressure, probably a lot of pressure from the banking system, who seen it as a great risk to its business, because it is basically showing that under this Emergency Act, they're just freezing accounts like tyrannically, without any oversight, without nothing. It's just they have given themselves so much power to the point where people lost their trust in the banking system overnight, and I was one of them. But Ontario remains in this state of emergency, or at least in its own way. They are still in a state of emergency. And Justin Trudeau blacklisted 39 trucking companies, where 39 family-owned businesses were blacklisted by Justin Trudeau, and he gave that list over to Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, who without trial, without any sort of proper process, has basically shut down these 39 family-owned businesses. 39 businesses have lost their livelihoods. It shows that Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau are not done, and Justin Trudeau, being the leader of this whole charade, is showing that he is going to keep doing this. Talks about imposing this Emergency Act again is still there. Now, this means that the Emergency Act could still possibly loom over a country for whatever reason. Luckily for now, we do not have this over our heads in Canada. If people understand how much the government lost its people's trust, it wouldn't be very surprising to anyone. But literally, overnight, Justin Trudeau ruined the trust the majority of Canadians had in their government and banking system. It has put people in great fear of their future. And not just fear, but anger and hatred towards the Liberals, the NDP, the Green Party, and anyone who supported such an act, and as well as has been supporting such a government that Justin Trudeau right now is the face of. We as Canadian citizens have had enough of this man, his government, and all these people that are turning our democracy, our nation, into an absolute laughingstock, an unsafe place to live, a very uncertain place just altogether, especially for our children who are being raised in this country. The education system for our children, how it's been compromised, and they have such foul and disgusting things being taught to kids, ruining our generations. Doug Ford ruins 39 family-owned businesses that provide us supplies and food every day in this country. Families like that, businesses like that, that are the reason why we can go to the store. People like that are the ones who transport that, who take the risk their lives, and as well risk their lives to promote this freedom convoy, to go to Ottawa. And they have lost their livelihoods. The government has also announced that many of the bank accounts that were frozen under this Emergency Act are going to be unfrozen, but also many are going to remain frozen, which is unacceptable. we are not in the clear yet. And we don't know if we're going to be in the clear for a good time or if ever, with personalities like these working hard to undermine our democracy in every way. Justin Trudeau is a disgrace. And when the Give Send Go was hacked and all that personal information was leaked, instead of going after that breach of security, which is a terrorist act, where people's names, their addresses, or I believe enough sensitive information to put terror into the people. They got threats, they got fired, they got their businesses shut down as a result. And instead of looking at that for what it was, an extreme breach of security and terrorist act that to this day is still having repercussions on those families that had that information shared, instead of going after that threat and assuring these people that their safety is going to be met, that their businesses are going to be protected, instead they went ahead and ignored it, allowed it to keep happening. These people to this day are still being threatened. They're still losing their businesses, their jobs. People are still in fear, basically living in terror, because they have terrorists threatening their business and threatening their lives because of this personal information that was shared everywhere. There's faces behind it. There's accounts behind it. There's people spreading this information on these people. And instead of them being on that list, it's the families who donated for a cause that they truly believed in and had the full legal right to do. Revoking this act is not justice enough. What is justice is removing this man from the face of the Canadian public. And yes, this man should be brought up to charges, and all of his collaborators. Justin Trudeau should be brought up to charges along with all the people who supported this scheme on Canadians. There's some good news, but also news that people are still being affected. That this man and his collaborators are still working extremely hard to destroy families, simply because his public image was challenged. Because the legacy that he wanted to leave behind, or wants to continue, went to shambles because of his own doing. And the public had enough. And he called it a nationwide threat because the whole entire nation wanted this man out, when he should not have been in the first place. He was voted out, but there it is, all of his collaborators who kept him in power, who undermined our democracy and our voices, kept such an awful man in power that has made himself dictator of Canada. And I am proud that he's being put in check, but it's not enough. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a scoop on the Emergency Act. Many of us, including me, looked at that in disgust as it was being passed, as the votes for yes were outweighing the votes for nay. And the trust that I lost, that was already eroded in our government, in our policing system, in our military, in our banking system, the education system, basically everything that is supposed to make Canada a safe place to be, a good place to be, especially for people who immigrate here. It was all lost. And it will never be regained unless something very dramatic and extraordinary happens. Where people are able to afford homes again, where people are able to have freedom of speech again, where people are able to have freedom to have their privacy, to not feel like someone's watching over their shoulder, to have our education system completely fixed, to teach kids good things that are not just to do with their sexuality and how they should view the world, how they should view their parents, how they should view, yes, basically the world, to the point where they're indoctrinating and turning kids into absolutely sensitive and broken individuals who, if this illusion that they've been taught has ever been challenged, they just trigger. they don't have a future, where these people are working hard towards taking the jobs away from these kids and getting them used to having no future, getting them used to just being told what to do, destroying family, tradition, culture, beliefs, all sorts of religious foundations, so that they can teach this state-run religion, this state-run culture that is unacceptable. What the World Economic Forum has done in influencing people like Justin Trudeau, people like Biden, and many like them, these type of people who should not be in the public face. They should not even be in secret dealing with public matters. We have a lot of correcting to do right now in the West, but for Canadians, we have to correct things a lot. We have to really look at things for what they are and begin to make this nation a proper nation to live. For everybody's skin color and everybody's beliefs. But we cannot support harmful and terrorist beliefs that try to ruin the sexuality of generations, try to ruin kids to the point where they cannot even recognize themselves, and their parents just watch in horror as this system manipulates and destroys their children. No more. Canadians are taking a stand, and it is nationwide. That is what this man called a national emergency. It is not a national emergency, it is a national blessing. And I give thanks to every one of you, all my brothers and sisters, for standing up. And I know that you'll continue to stand up. We don't need to be blockading roads, bridges, doing harm to infrastructure, to our trade. Now we have enough courage, enough of the population awake, to where now we can do it by just using our voice, rejecting these things, calling in wherever you see these things and saying, hey, I don't agree with that. My whole community doesn't agree with that. Not only are we going to petition, we're just not going to agree with that. We're not going to work with that. Respect our rights, respect our Charter of Rights. And not only that, respect our human rights, our God-given rights. Man gives us laws and rights to protect us. But we were born free. We were born with unalienable rights that you cannot take away. That is our free speech, our ability to worship how we want, our ability to move to different places how we want, our ability to use our expression how we want, the ability to be who we want, and the ability to have a community that backs us in that without it being manipulated by the system, the state. Thank you very much. God bless you all.